Okay, let's take a look at this last section here. Now, this part may be a little hard to get your head wrapped around, but bear with me. So we've got our resultants laid out here. The components in the x direction ended up as a 7 squared, so that gives us 49. 14 squared gives us 2004. And then when we do our square root of the sum of the squares, we get a value of 16 grams as our resultant. And then the angle would be, and you don't need this, roughly 180 degrees. So that's what's going on right there where that little red dot is. That's giving you what your resultant actually is. Okay. So now what we have to do is make sense of this, of these sections here that are your error relationships. So I'm going to put boxes around them all. Okay, so for the first part, we need to go through and capture all of the x terms and sum them, take the difference, square them, blah, blah, blah. So if we take a look at the relationship, we take each of the terms, so we have each of our x values that we are summing. We're taking the absolute value of the negative terms. That would be these two terms, 153 and 463. Okay, and we take the difference in those, so we're taking the absolute value of those two terms, and then we're dividing it by the square root of the sum of all of those terms. Okay, so we're going to take all of these terms and we add them, we square them, and we divide them into, we take the sum of all of these, we add them, we square them, and we divide it into the difference in the sum of these two. And that ends up giving us our percent error in the x direction. We do the same thing in the y direction. We're going to take all of the values in the y direction, we're going to sum them, take the difference, and then in the denominator we're going to take the square root of all of those terms. So that's what that's all about there. And then of course we give it a percentage. So these values are our percent of error. Percent of error in the x direction, these terms. Percent of error in the y direction, these terms. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do then is take these two values, 0.6 and 0.3, and we need to do an overall percentage of error between those two. Okay, so when we do that, we're going to do again the sum of the squares. We square this value, we square this value, we sum them, and then we take the square root and we end up with a percentage of error, in this case 0.7. Okay, so that's what I got. I'm seeing values all over the place, but doing this by the way the lab book was laid out, those should be the values. Okay, so do the best you can on those. What I really like seeing on this one is the graph and the math up here on the top in your resultant. So do the best you can on the percent of error stuff, and I'll take that into consideration. Okay, I know this was a tough one. Hope you got something out of it. I know it probably wasn't enjoyable, but you did a great job.